Do I hear a motion that the board approve the 2022-2023 Board of Trustees calendar?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the 2022-2023 Board of Trustees calendar as presented by administration.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. All right, I'm going to let Ms. McPhail walk us through this real quickly.
Thank you, Board and Madam Chair. As you will see in your packet, there are some dates. Those are the third Tuesday meetings in that first list. And then we do have some exceptions. Some of those exceptions I brought to you last month. But then, as you may remember, Chair Green said, does the staff have some challenges when we have a Tuesday meeting following a Monday holiday or day off? And we were honest. We said, yes, that is a challenge, especially when we also have that Friday before the Monday off. So that means we have to get all of our ducks in a row and by Thursday. And sometimes those ducks are not, they're flying around. So we, the board chair asked that maybe we offer some alternatives to that just for your consideration. And so these dates are those alternatives for your consideration. I also want to say that on December 13th, I apologize, I had put in the first reading, I unintentionally stated that December 14th, but that's a Wednesday, so actually December 13th would be that board meeting. That is a Tuesday. That was just a typo, not a change. The changes you see are highlighted there. That exception would be moving from the third Tuesday in January to the second Tuesday of January, which would be January the 10th. And the other exception would be moving to the fourth Tuesday of February, which would be February 28th. And that's because both of those fall on that situation I was just telling you about, where there is a Monday holiday or a makeup day, a weather makeup day. So I just present those dates for your consideration and approval.
Well, I'll just add to, as you're talking about getting your ducks in a row, one of the challenges when there's a Friday and a Monday is all of our legal requirements for the notices and getting the board packet and the information to the board in a timely manner. A lot of that happens on Fridays before our Tuesday meetings, and so that's just a real, I think it's a challenge for staff to get that all together, because things are changing as late as Friday morning, sometimes on some of the agenda items that are going to be on the agenda. So I think that is probably a good adjustment, just for y'all's sake. Board, do you have any questions about the calendar?
Well, I just say this every year. There's a couple extra meetings in there that I don't necessarily think we need. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think one's in May and one's in April. And if you look at that calendar, we have 4 meetings from, I think it's March 11th to April 14th, or April something to May 14th. I think it's April to May. There are 4 meetings within a 5-week span there. And every year when I have this conversation, I'm told, okay, we'll review that when it gets closer time to the meeting. But when it gets closer to time, I don't have a way to get an item on the agenda. So I think last year at one of our meetings, we called a meeting to have a mask update. And so we coordinated all of these people, and we talk about, being respectful of the staff's time. Well, I think if we took a couple of those meetings off of there, that they would appreciate that more than anything if they're not necessarily needed.
My question would be specific for those meetings that you're referencing, Ms. Garris. What's the availability for us to conduct those virtually? If it's specific for HR purposes only, because obviously we don't want to stand in the way of hiring, and to do so in a timely fashion. But if we can facilitate in a technological or virtual format, is that a potential possibility?
I think you have to have a majority present. I don't know.
I think we found that out last year during that we had to have a majority, because our
physically present.
Board state law requires us to have our meetings in the district physically, and I'm not sure how you manage that with the. I think Ms. Garris is right about that. That there are a couple logistical things that when this came up during the height of the early COVID days, while we continued to always have a meeting here.
So maybe that only occurred while we were under emergency order
I
by the
think so,
governor?
I think
that-
so.
that
And there
provision
was still a
lifted?
majority in the building. It was just a few people that needed to, because I think you didn't want to, because in your role as a physician, you wanted to stay. And so I think that a few people were able to Zoom in for that purpose.
Gotcha.
Ms. Price, you want to talk about the need for, at least from the human resources aspect,
Sure.
why that early May meeting is so important?
Yes, so that may, both meetings are really important, because just like we brought 19 names tonight, we're trying to bring them earlier and earlier, and the sooner kind of that person gets their contract in their hand and we tell them, yes, you're an employee, of course, that makes them have a sense of relief and they don't go sign somewhere else, which is what we want. That May deadline is really important to us because that is the deadline for contracts to come in on May the 10th, and so if we are going to have people coming in from other places throughout the state, we have to do that before that deadline. So that's why those April meetings are always kind of a push to, in that first May meeting, to get in those last minute contracts as soon as we can,
But would it be suitable for you? I know we've done this in the past. We've called a meeting a couple days in advance, showed up here at 7-something in the morning, and approved HR recommendations and went on about our day. So that way we don't have a full meeting devoted basically for human resources
Sure.
approval. But then we throw other things in there just to make it worth everybody's time.
yeah, absolutely. If that's the pleasure of the board, that, my time is not that long to have to go through the approval process for those, so whatever the pleasure of the board is for that.
So I'm looking at these, it is, let's see here.
Again, from our end, we just need to make sure we have the meeting set aside. So if y'all either want it on your schedule or you don't, but we need to meet that week to do the human resources stuff.
Okay, it's the April 11th, May
Why
the
couldn't we
2nd.
do like an 8 o'clock morning meeting, like we've done that before? We just, if it's with employment issues, let's just come in and knock it out and be on our way.
Again, when we start that meeting is immaterial to me.
Right.
We need to make sure we have the meeting so we can vote on the employment
Yeah, because you'd have to
recommendation.
come out and vote on that.
Okay, so April the 11th and May the 2nd, they're on here both for human resources. So could we just make a note that those are going to be early morning meetings and only for HR?
That
Does
suits my
does that work with the board?
purposes.
That suits me.
Okay,
I mean, and I think the board could, if we decide in February, anticipating that something else is coming up, who knows? I think we can manage that then. I think that's not a bad idea to do that way.
Yes. We can do that.
Okay, so hold on, we need
I need to revise that.
to revise then the,
I actually
Proposal.
don't have times set for those, as you
Okay.
can see in this.
That's good.
We have 7 o'clock as our regular meetings, but those are not our regular meetings, so
I think that's
I
great.
don't believe I have a time set for any of those.
And I think those fluctuate, because like some of our workshops start at 6 o'clock. Those are more ad hoc time designations. And so,
And of course, we would send our public notices as usual anytime there's a quorum of our board members or a meeting or a workshop. So we will follow that.
I think that, does anybody do we want to add like language that just says, we recommend the following dates for these workshops and our meetings, with times to be determined, with meeting time to be, or do we do it and just leave it off like we've had in the past? Do we need to specify that?
I think the current language just gives you
Okay,
fluidity.
all right. Okay, all right, super. Okay. All right, so, Dr. Guyton, do you want to reread your motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the 2022-2023 Board of Trustees calendar as presented by administration.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries.